Hello, NASDAQ followers. You're here just in time for another NASDAQ Speed Reads. Today with me is Soon Yo, author of Iconic Advantage, and I'm wearing iconic red to match.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Soon, thank you so much for joining us. So your co-author, Dave Burrs, you were just telling me, is based out of London.
That's right. We're bipondal, whatever that is, right?
Amazing. That's incredible. So you guys worked on this book together, which is all about how brands have made their brands really stick with audience and resonate with the audience that stood the test of time. And so Soon has been served as global VP of Innovation for VF Company, which has oversees several apparel companies, including Timberland and North Face. Is that correct? Okay, great. And in this book, I just learned so much. I learned so much about why some brands just stick. So let's dive right into it and tell us a little bit about what Iconic Advantage is.
Sure. Iconic Advantage is a strategy, and the strategy is really focused on how do you build iconic products, brands, and franchises. And more importantly, not just how you build them, but how you sustain them, because what you're talking about is this idea of sticking around. And in order to reach iconic status, you need longevity. Because with longevity, eventually you become the standard bearer within the category for a certain distinction or benefit. And that's what Iconic Advantage is all about. Now, why it's different than traditional strategy is because it's really focused on taking a lot of your shiny new ideas, but it's where you focus those shiny new ideas. You focus it on where you already have strength, where you already have momentum, where you already have customers and consumers who love you, and you focus on building greater iconicity versus always trying to chase after shiny new objects.
Right, and so I find it interesting that you're talking about innovating what's already there, innovating the old as opposed to chasing every time what's new, what's next.
Right.
Do you think that this is a misconception among brands to think that success is based in chasing what's new?
Well, you think about corporations or companies, they're made up of people, right? And every time you bring in some new folks in, they want to make their mark in the company, right? They want to make their name. And if, for example, I worked for a really great iconic brand called Clorox, the bleach company, right? Now, if I said to these new people, great, come on in, we hired you from these great business schools, and we're going to put you on Clorox bleach so you can figure out version 9.3.7 of the bleach product, it doesn't sound as exciting. And so it is a challenge, I think, to have people focus on what they're already strong at, what they're already good at. But if they do that, one, it's easier. Two, it's more profitable. And three, it's faster in terms of getting out to market. Part of the reason I know this, Leanne, is I spent the last 20 years working on innovation, new products, design, innovation, all this. And I've had a lot more failures than I've had successes. And I was always curious, why were certain companies like the Nikes, the BMWs, the Burberrys, the Apples of the world so much more successful with every dollar they spent on innovation or every hour they put towards innovation versus what I was doing? Right. And when I researched about almost 50 companies, they were doing it very differently. And they were, instead of just taking shiny new ideas and going after new spaces, taking those same ideas and applying it against their iconic franchises.
Very interesting. So let's talk about the components of what makes Iconic Advantage. You talk about staying, noticing, and scaling power. Right. Let's start with the first one, which is actually noticing. What is noticing power? Obviously, we can kind of imply what it means, but sure. What does it mean explicitly, and what do you think are some good brands that are examples that got noticed?
Great. So you described the framework perfectly, and we need to step back a little bit, and in order to understand where the framework applies is really understanding the question, what makes products, brands, services iconic? And if we understand that, then understanding what those qualities are, we can supercharge them. So when we did our research, we found out there are only three major qualities that most iconic products, brands, and franchises share. The first one is there's something distinctive about that brand, product, or service, something that's memorable, that's unique, that's differentiated, that they're known for. Okay? The second thing is that whatever that distinction is, it's highly relevant to their audience, highly meaningful, highly beneficial to that audience. And the key here is that it's relevant not just today, it was relevant yesterday, and it'll be relevant in the future. Okay? And the last thing is that they are recognized, universally recognized with whatever audience they want to be iconic with, they're universally recognized for that distinctive relevance. And if over time you can be recognized for that distinctive relevance and you have that longevity, you eventually become the standard bearer for that distinctive relevance, and that's how you reach iconic status. Knowing that distinction, relevance, and recognition are the three qualities that make a product or a brand or service iconic, then what do you do about that? And that's where noticing power, staying power, and scaling power. Noticing power in terms of, does your product, brand, or service create notice? Do people take notice of it?
Yeah.
And then in terms of staying power, it's not just about being relevant today. It's about being relevant yesterday, today, and in the future. It's this idea of creating timeless relevance. And that longevity then leads to iconicity. And the last one is, once you have great noticing power in terms of creating distinction and great staying power in terms of timeless relevance, then let's just make sure the people you want to be iconic to recognize you for that. And that's all about scaling power. So those are the three.
Absolutely. So looking at these terms, I mean, it sounds simple enough, right? Like,
it is
get noticed. Let's do a gimmick or something.
Right.
But you also explore in your book, within the 50 companies that you looked at, you explore some kind of companies that tried doing this, for example, for noticing power, and they kind of flopped.
Right.
So what are some of the traps that people can fall into when trying to get noticed?
Sure. A lot of companies think noticing power is all about, look at me, bling bling, flashy lights, whatever. And they want to be different for different sake. So every 2 years they come up with a new campaign, or they do the raciest or the most salacious thing that they can do to get noticed. And that's not what we're talking about noticing power. Noticing power is about creating distinction around something that's differentiated and meaningful, okay? And so what you want to do is start creating things that are signature for you, signature elements. And there are different ways to create signature elements. I'm going to give you a quick quiz while we're talking here.
Let's do it.
So here's different ways to create signature elements. If I said to you, high heel shoes, and this is also for the viewers here, high heel shoes, red bottom, who would you think of? Louboutin. You get one ding, you got one right. Okay. If I said beer bottle with a lime in the neck.
Corona.
Corona. Good.
Yeah.
All right, you got two. Okay, so I'm going to give you one more. Let's think of one. Okay. So if I said happy ears.
Happy ears.
Happy ears.
Oh, like McDonald's?
Mickey Mouse.
Oh, Mickey Mouse. Okay, you did. See, I was thinking golden arches now. You were taking
that's
into account
okay. Okay,
which is also iconic, but
that's
not.
very iconic too.
I was
Very,
watching
right.
your signals. Okay, cool.
But those are all signature elements. So you can create signature elements through, for example, one of your producers, Mish, right?
Yes.
She loves one of the brands that I love. And if I said to you, a shoe with the air pocket in the sole, that's which brand? Nike, you got it, right. So you can create a signature element through a product feature that you're known for. You can create it through a pattern or style. Like if I said Burberry, you would think of the checkered pattern style, right? Okay. Silhouette, we just talked about it. The idea of the Coke bottle silhouette, the lime in the beer bottle, those are all silhouettes, right? You can also have signature experiences. I said to you, ice bucket over your head.
Ice bucket over my head.
Yes. If I'm going to put an ice bucket over your head and pour it over.
Like a Gatorade?
No. ALS challenge, right?
ALS challenge. Oh, yeah, I totally did that. Yes,
or if I said to you,
years ago.
green box with cookies.
Girl Scout cookies.
Girl Scouts, exactly.
Yeah.
So these are all sort of signature elements. And
I like this quiz.
Yeah. And you can create signature experiences and signature points of view, too.
Yeah, and it's definitely very telling. It's telling, that you can quiz me and that I can just like almost to the T.
Almost.
It's like an 8 out of 10 right now.
Right, yes.
But that I can immediately tell you, oh, I know exactly what brand I'm thinking about. So you also talked in your book about what attracts humans to brands beyond the recognizable symbol. And you talk a lot about the importance of storytelling, which is something that I also talked to you about that I think is very important. So when it comes to brands, why is storytelling so important?
So the thing with signature elements, they're actually an embodiment of a key point of difference. Okay, so let's take the Nike, right? The Nike, the air pocket, it embodies this idea of buoyancy, right? It embodies the idea that 40% of in the lifetime of a shoe, 40% of the support goes away in the sole. Okay, but a pocket of air will never lose its bounce, right? And so it helps embody meaning and story. And then if you do more research about what it is that, what they put into it, the effort, the people behind it, trial and error that they did to create that, the more attached you become to it. And humans, we're so unique in our ability to attach meaning to objects and to symbols. And basically all signature elements are, and all icons are symbols. And it's just a form of communication, and it's a form of storytelling, and we really gravitate towards that. I'll give you an example. If I showed you this big pen, it's kind of beaten up, right? Mm-hmm. And I had next to it a Mont Blanc pen, okay? And I said, which one do you think is much more meaningful to me? Most people would pick the Mont Blanc pen, okay? Mm-hmm. But if I said to you, well, I've had this pen for the last 13 years, and every year my wife and I go and we sign cards to each other, because this is the pen that we signed our marriage certificate together with, and that we didn't actually have a pen, when we were at the Justice of Peace, and she gave it to us. And all of a sudden I'd say, which one's more meaningful to me? You would look at it and say, even though this one is literally 1/100th the cost of the other one, this one has so much more meaning. And that's what we do as humans. We attach meaning to things. And that's the way we treat brands, and that's the way we treat products.
And that's invaluable.
Invaluable.
Yeah.
And so the goal with Iconic Advantage is, how do you harness that? How do you protect that? How do you make people remember that? And how do you keep that timeless?
So just going off that thread and having meaning, you also talk about in your book about how brands that have a voice and brands that kind of stand for something tend to be the most successful. Why do you think that's so?
Well, I always say this. It's more important to be indispensable to 100 people than to be well known by literally 1 million people. Because if you're indispensable, that means, one, you're doing something right, okay? Two, you're going to have a small group of people that will provide testimonials that, especially in this day and age with social media, with all the tools that are available, are going to be bullhorns and are going to be an amazing platform for you to build the brand on. I feel like right now, a lot of folks are going after, they call brand love, they call it brand recognition, they call it brand relevance. I think what's more important to think about is, are you creating lust? Are you creating brands that people lust after? Are there elements about it that they can't live without? And if so, then you have a real shot at becoming iconic.
Wow, that really sticks. And then the other question I wanted to ask you is, you mentioned that not only is it important for people to have a view, but also, sorry, I lost my train of thought there, but to also speak to experiences that people have. So you talk about storytelling, and you talk about having a persona. I actually just remembered what I was going to say.
I'm glad you found it.
Found the thread. So in this era where you say people chase brand love, people also are chasing another thing, which is keeping up with technology. Mm-hmm. So in this era where we're moving so quickly with technology, we have social media, things are moving really quickly. How do brands stay consistent and deliver that message to that group of people that they're going after?
Sometimes when people hear my message and I say innovate the old, what they think is, oh, well, I'm going to put blinders on and I'm not going to play with technology. I'm not going to play with augmented reality or virtual reality. I'm not going to play with different ways of communicating or interacting or creating value or new business models. I'm not saying that. I'm actually saying that instead of going after new spaces, take all those shiny new ideas and apply them against something that you already own, something that people already recognize you for. Mm-hmm. And so there's a couple ways to do it. One, take all those shiny new ideas and actually figure out different ways to bring out your brand benefit, okay, and bring it to life more. And if you want to take it to the extreme, own that brand benefit to the level where you're actually parts of the organization who are trying to actually put the existing business out of business. And I talk about an example of Amazon in my book.
One click.
Right. And, we all know Amazon initially was sort of this idea of having the world's biggest availability and lowest cost bookstore, right? And then it went from books to CDs, and it obviously expanded beyond that, right? Well, I would argue this. They're probably not the cheapest anymore, nor are they the most available. You can find stuff in Alibaba, or you can find stuff in probably eBay that you might not find on Amazon. But you'll find 99% of it, and it'll be, the price-wise, it'll be close enough, right?
Right.
I don't think that's how they're building their future business model. When I look at everything they're doing, I think they landed on something early on, whether it was by intent or by happy accident. they were able to patent and trademark the idea of one click. Okay, so basically you click it and it's already on its way to you. Okay, and you don't even have to even go through the checkout, and it's a wonderful benefit. But they've actually taken the benefit that's embodied in one click to another level. You know, they've obviously early on they took it to where you can do downloadable music and CDs and movies and books and all that, right? You can download that stuff. But then they took it to the next level where you could actually have physical buttons that you could one-click. I don't know if you remember those dash buttons.
Yep, I remember. I think I saw the Pizza Hut button.
Right, Pizza Hut, Bounty, yeah, the one you can issue, right?
Yep, they had everything.
They had everything. So they had these dash buttons that were physical manifestations of one-click. And what's so funny that they've gotten to the place where obviously you can one-click groceries, you can one-click, organic food now, right? And so they've taken to the next level. And even though like downloadable books and CDs are putting their previous business out of business, they don't care because they still want to own the benefit of one-click. And now with the introduction of Alexa, right?
Right.
You don't even need to go to the website anymore. You just say, Alexa, I want ABC, and it's already on its way. And I argue, my son's 8. I think by the time he's hopefully probably before he's my age, he won't even know that Amazon was a website. In his mind, especially with predictive analytics and IoT and who knows, we may have chips implanted in our brains. If he wants a Coke, it's going to be right next to him before he even knows he needs a Coke, okay? And of course, if he didn't want a Coke, he can send it away for free, right?
So what you're telling me is that the original concept that Amazon had is the one click. They're literally evolving with that.
And they're willing to cannibalize all their existing businesses to own one thing, which is I think they're going to own no patience required. That is what they're going to be known for. More than ever a website, more than books or CDs, or more than being the lowest price. They're going to be known for no patience required.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. Yep. With drones, with delivery, everything.
Excellent.
Now, for companies that are just starting and startups, what can they glean from knowing about Iconic Advantage at such an early stage? And how can set a brand that will be iconic for years to come?
That's an excellent question. Most people look at the book and they say, oh, this is probably Fortune 500, Fortune 1000, because they have to have something to work with. Actually, I have a really good friend who works at Kleiner Perkins, and he has a quote in the back of the book, and his name's Wen Shea, and he's a partner there, and he basically says, Iconic Advantage is more important for startups than it is for large companies. And here's why. Most startups find themselves in 2 to 3 horse races with other similar companies and similar spaces with similar technologies. And the way they try to differentiate each other is either getting out faster or having more scale or having a bigger or better mousetrap. Like, I have more MIPS, or I have a larger blah, 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 or my engine is, or my algorithm is whatever, right?
Right.
And here's my argument. It isn't always the biggest or baddest or most technologically gifted mousetrap that wins. It's the one with the stinkiest cheese. So your goal is to create stinky cheese even from day one.
Huh.
So people don't think about startups in the terms of which one's faster, which one's larger, or which one is bigger. They think about it in terms of which one's more relevant, which one tells the better story related. How does their technology improve my life? So if you're a better storyteller and if your story is more fragrant, okay? If you leave the room and there's that fragrance and everyone knows what your signature is, you're going to win 10 times out of 10.
And is that something, as we're wrapping up here, is that something that people can apply to their personal lives as well, do you think? Not in an era where we talk about, where I can ask you and I can say soon, what's your brand?
So for the viewers here, we had a quick discussion before we got on. I was getting to know a little bit about Leanne, and I was asking Leanne about, on a personal level, what is her iconicity, right? And when I think about it, yes, the answer is absolutely yes. And I had a chance to look at some of your previous clips. And a couple of things that are very distinctive about you would be, one, I love that you get specific, because to me, that's an element, that's a signature element you have. It shows that you've actually read the book. And when we were talking about it, you actually read all the books. Which I think, and you read this one twice, which I was like blown away. And I love that. But it shows that you have actually read the book and you've thought about it. And that's one of your signature elements. And I think if people come and are interviewed by you and interact with you, that level of depth that you bring will be one of your iconic signature elements. The other thing that we talked about is obviously the idea that you speak 2 languages, right? And that you're able to leverage that and use that in the future. So yes, I think oftentimes we come out of performance reviews and all we focus on is the 10% that we did wrong, right? And what I would suggest is look at the 20% that you kicked ass on. Excuse me, is that a language I can use? But that you kicked some butt on.
It's allowed.
Okay, that you really kicked some butt on, right? And then make that your iconic signature within whatever small universe, okay? And the other thing I wanted to share about this idea of iconic advantage, it doesn't just apply to big companies or startups. It applies to Pizza Parlor in Potrero Hill in San Francisco. If you're ever there, I'll take you there. But they're iconic.
I have to make my way out there.
They're iconic because they have sourdough crust. And it's delicious. And sourdough fits San Francisco, right?
Very nice.
So it's a perfect iconic signature element for being iconic just in San Francisco in Potrero Hill, because that's all they want to be iconic to.
Amazing. Well, so much to think about here soon as we think about our company brands and our personal brands as well. So from sourdough pizza crust
Yep.
to Nike's, is it the soles?
Yep,
Air Pocket soles. Check out Iconic Advantage to learn more about how companies have that sticking and stay power by Soon Yu and Dave Burrs. Until next time, NASDAQ followers, join us on another episode of NASDAQ Speed Reads. Coming up next on NASDAQ is the closing bell. You won't want to miss it. Stay tuned.